So now that we've chosen the years that we want to include, we are ready to create our composite. So in this case, remember, we selected all 9 available years because all of them looked good. And just to reinforce, I assume that you've probably picked up, but the color schemes here are just general, but in general, darker green relates to higher NDVI, and the red areas would be the low NDVI. So again, when you look through these preview years, you also just look for the trends. You generally expect to see red areas would be consistently red, unless in some cases you might see red in a wet year and green in a dry year, because maybe there are low areas that perform better, for example, in those years. So once you've selected your years to include, you're going to click on Classify Zones, and that'll automatically take you to the Zone tab, and you'll automatically see an initial run of your zones. So in this case, we default to classification of natural breaks, which probably is what you're going to want. But in some cases, you might get good results with some of the others, like equal count or standard deviation. It could be worth looking at those as well. The default is to create 3 zones, but if you want to create more, you can just move the slider and we can go up to 10 zones or as low as 2 zones. So again, depending on the classification method that you use, you will get slightly different results. So again, natural breaks is the recommended approach, because that actually looks for natural groupings, and it should do a reasonably good job on most fields. If you choose quantiles, then it'll mean that each of your zones is about the same number of acres, because it tries to assign an equal count of pixels or of the acres in the field to that zone. Equal interval will do it a different way. It sets the zone breaks equally, and often you end up with something like that. You'll get very, very small, probably zone 1 and zone 5 in this case. Standard deviation is often a good compromise, actually. You'll generally find that you'll get slightly bigger low producing zones than you do in natural breaks. But again, it's worth looking if you don't like the initial look of the Jenks natural breaks classification. And once you've created your zones, I'm just going to roll back to 3 because that's just easier to manage. Let's do one more. Every time you make a change to the sliders, it'll refresh and it'll recompute the zones automatically, so you don't have to do that. But you can force a recompute with the option down here as well if it ever did need it. You can also change what we call the zone blob size. So this is designed to prevent really small areas being included as part of a zone. So by default, it's set to half an acre. So that means that all of these sort of smaller areas that show up on the map should be at least half an acre, give or take a tiny bit. If you want to maybe increase that a little bit, you can. And what you'll find then is you'll lose some definition. You'll have larger contiguous areas, and now you should find that all of these red strips here, for example, the red areas will be at least an acre. So again, the default on that is half an acre, and feel free to adjust that as you like. There is also a smoothing tolerance here, so it'll make a little bit of a difference, and in general it just smooths out the zones a little bit more, and again you'll probably find that you'll lose a little bit of detail by having these smoother zone transitions. You can do that if you like. By default it's actually just set to low value, up to you what you want to change with it there. There's also this transparency slider, so you can turn the zones kind of on and off and have a look against the satellite imagery. And again, you should be seeing some correlation. I can see the features in the satellite imagery in the background, and I can see that the zones pretty well match up to a lot of that. So it's a good sign that we've got some good data that went in and these zones actually do represent what really happens in the field. And we've also got these controls below. So let's say you wanted to make zone 1 a little bit smaller. You can do that. You can just drag down the cutoff for zone 1, for example. So now zone 1 is everywhere where the productivity index value is between 83 and 91. Let's say you want to make zone 1 bigger, you would just increase that number, and now zone 1 will be bigger at the expense of zone 2. So maybe you want to make zone 2 a little bigger as well, and now zone 3 will get a little bit smaller. So again, you can play with that if you want to, but otherwise, if you want to just recompute and go back to the original classification with natural breaks, or maybe just make a change up here and then change back again, you can get back to the original. And if you want to be 100% sure that it's everything's reset, then just hit clear zones and then just click again to recompute it. So that'll just wipe everything and start fresh. So let's say we're happy with what we have now. Then you would be ready to move on to either straight to export out the zones as a shapefile, or to go into the topo tab, and we'll talk about that in the next video. The other thing that's in here as well, there is a merge tool. So if you did want to merge 2 zones into one, for example, maybe you had one zone that was a little small and you just thought, let's just merge it into another zone. You can pick the 2 zones that you want to merge, and it'll keep the zone with the original highest number of acres. So it'll keep the largest zone and it'll merge into that. So now we've just gone to 2 zones, and zone 1 is actually the original zone 1 merged with zone 2. So you can always do that as well. So assuming that you're happy with the zones, you're not going to do any more, you're not going to incorporate topography, then you would be ready here just to go to export. You can click export shapefile, and it'll zip up a shapefile for you. It'll be called PowerZoner zones. You might want to rename it to your field name and just save it. Now that's a shapefile that will be accepted in just about any software that can import a shapefile for you. So that's how you would make your basic standard satellite-based zones. And in the next video, I'll show you how we can incorporate the topography into that as well. So I'll see you there.